when you talked about Mystic River and how, and you just mentioned it, that it was just well, I assume one of the reasons he didn't take a huge salary is because of the heavyweight actors that were in it, demanding a salary. Um, but it struck me as like, I guess as his style of shooting became more and more known, that one you talked about how Sean Penn and Tim Robbins, everybody kind of like immediately got on board. Like, okay, this is a Clint movie. I'm not here to disrupt. I'm not here to have like what I would do it this way. And Sean Penn is known for a person with a lot of opinions, as is Tim Robbins. And so it's like it seems to me that like one of the reasons, in addition to a great script and a great execution all around, is like maybe the key is that like you need a set of people working on it that are just like, all right, I'm going to let Clint be Clint. I don't need to question it, even though it, as an artist, may bump up against it. Do you find that is there any through line of that? Like the ones that worked were the ones where everyone sort of got in line, and the ones that didn't work as much are the ones where he notoriously was fighting with somebody.
Yeah, I mean, there's very few instances of him, Kevin Costner during the making of A Perfect World, which is a deep cut and a great movie. It's his directorial follow-up to Unforgiven, and it's got a lot of the same themes in it, different setting, and it's got a great performance by Costner, but he literally read Costner the riot act on the set and said, I will use your lighting double on
Yeah.
every scene. Try me,
Yeah.
And Costner, I think for most actors who are younger than Clint, which at this point is everybody, it's like, wow, if he can do this with no ego and step in, then who am I to say, no, I insist. And the smart actors, the ones who really sort of study the craft that they partake in every day, get what he's up to. There's a wonderful quote from Tim Robbins in the book that he said, I had to do really emotional things. And the glory of knowing it was only going to be one or two takes was that I could go 100% each time, because if I thought I was going to do it 16 times, I'd have to hold back. So I had something in the tank for the 16th time.
Yeah.
Instead, you can just go for it. And I think if you were raised on theater as a performer, or, you really are a student of acting as opposed to an actor by profession, I think people get that. Meryl Streep understood it. There's a wonderful quote from her. She says to Clint, you kept my mistakes in. And he says, yes, but they were human mistakes.
No,
And that's what
that's
he's
so
trying to
cool.
capture.
Yeah, I love that. That's so cool. And then it became, I guess because it then continued to work, that style of shooting, then why would he change that? Like that's just going to be, that's his style and it's worked for him. So, keep going. Especially as you get older and you probably get literally physically tired. Like I can't, I would imagine if he, the last few movies, he can't do 16 takes or something. He's an older gentleman, you know. Um, Off of Rawhide, then we had sort of the Sergio Leone trilogy, The Man with No Name, which was then, they're very divisive in a lot of ways in terms of, are they good movies? Are they bad movies? Certainly back then, I think a lot of people were like, what is this? And then now I think they're considered more, classics. But what an interesting path also to become a movie star, but not in Hollywood, not in America.
Right. James Garner and Steve McQueen had also been on TV Westerns and became movie stars, but they did it in Hollywood. Clint did something there was no formula for this. We see it in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where the Rick Dalton character goes to make Westerns in Italy. But Clint was the first, literally. He got 15 grand, period. No percentage, nothing else, to appear in what became Fistful of Dollars. And he was the only English speaker on the set. He kept cutting his dialogue. When he showed up, they were so ill-informed. Sergio Leone had a vision, but he didn't have the particulars. So he had people wearing like coonskin caps in Mexico, and things like that. But he also didn't follow the Hollywood rule. Like, you couldn't show someone shoot and the fellow being shot in the same frame. So the violence and the close-ups and the music and the use of colors and the grotesque faces, all of that was radically new. But Clint didn't know, because he made the movie, he went home, and it didn't play in the States for 3 years because they had stolen the plot from the Japanese film Yojimbo, and if they had played in certain markets, they would have been sued. So Clint was a huge international movie star, particularly in Europe and South America, before anyone in Hollywood saw those films.
That's incredible. Yeah. And you also talk about how that he really learned, he's obviously he was learning on the set of Rawhide, but almost what he didn't want to do. It was the beginnings of like, oh, I don't like this style of filmmaking in terms of like so many takes and budgets that are blowing up and wasting money and wasting everybody's time. He hated the sitting around after take, and kind of was like, well, I'm going to use this as an education of what not to do.
Absolutely. I think in his heart, he's one of these guys who's got 2 or 3 takes in him as an actor, max, and he just learned as a director, more good stuff happens in rehearsal and gets tossed away than comes out in the 15th take. So let's start filming rehearsals. Let's film the first take and only use that. And there's a scene in the book when they're filming Bird, and the reporter for the New York Times who's visiting the set hears 2 crewmen talking, and one says, "What's the first shot tomorrow?" And the guy says, "We're doing it now." You know, and that was his way. Get the thing done, get it done under budget. Warner Brothers knew after a while, you may not make $1 trillion on a Clint Eastwood movie, but you're not going to lose a nickel. And if there's a floor and the ceiling is potentially very high, you can get funding and keep going along.
Yeah, and I think you put it that Malpaso, his production company, like they were always trying to hit doubles and triples and not trying to always hit home runs, and they just, and keeping their budgets tight and keeping everything, uh, that became the mantra, and that's how you have a long career. You save people money in Hollywood, they're going to give you another try.
And every now and then you make one that makes a couple $100 million, and the budget was still only 40 million, and wow, everyone's dining out on that. So,
Yeah, it's
and the
it's
worst
wild.
thing that happens is you made a Clint Eastwood movie,
Right,
and
exactly.
nobody goes to a dinner party and is embarrassed having done that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, and then jumping forward for a second because I was struck at when you talked about Mystic River and how and you just mentioned it that it was just I assume one of the reasons he didn't take huge salaries because of the heavyweight actors that were in it demanding a salary. Um, but it struck me as like I guess as his style of shooting became more and more known, that one, you talked about how Sean Penn and Tim Robbins, everybody kinda, like, immediately got on board. Like, "Okay, this is a Clint movie. I'm not here to disrupt. I'm not here to have, like, what I would do it this way." And, Sean Penn is known for a person with a lot of opinions, as is Tim Robbins, and so it's like, it seems to me that, like, one of the reasons, in addition to a great script and a great execution all around, is, like, maybe the key is that, like, you need a set of people working on it that are just like, all right, I'm gonna let Clint be Clint. I don't need to question it, even though it as an artist may, bump up against it.